Hi everybody, this is Bonnie Barker with Bonnie Babe Crochet, and today I have an easy beginner project that I believe even an intermediate crocheter will enjoy doing. I believe anybody out there could make this in 3 hours or less. I am an experienced crocheter. It took me about an hour and a half from start to finish. All you need to know is how to crochet a chain, a single crochet, and a slip stitch. This is a great learning project, and it's a one skein wonder. Okay. One thing fun about these scarves is the buttons, or the small buttons, which these are 1 1/8 inch. They can fit through anywhere on the fabric of this scarf. So as you can imagine, there is an unlimited number of ways that you can creatively wear this as a scarf, as a wrap, just whatever you want to come up with. And if you wanted to make this a little bit wider, you can just make this into a wrap of a similar design. Okay, let me show you another fun way to do this. I made one with just one big beautiful button on it. And towards the end of the tutorial, I will teach you how to make a buttonhole for this. I will show you how to make a buttonhole of any size so that you can use it on future designs or on this one to suit any size buttons. And you will not believe how easy it is. I promise you, you still only need to know single crochet and chains in order to do the buttonhole. And I'm going to show you some examples of how you can wear these scarves, and then after that I will show you what you're going to need and we'll dive right into making them. For this project, I'm recommending Yarnspiration's Bernat Blanket Yarn. Some of the stats on this yarn: it is a number 6 or super bulky. If you don't have this yarn available, feel free to use any other number 6 or super bulky weight yarn. This particular yarn is 100% polyester. It is a 10.5 ounce ball of yarn, and which has approximately 220 yards in it. I'm not sure that we're going to use all of that. This particular color is called Vintage White. I'm also going to be using a size N or 15 or 10.00 millimeters crochet hook. And if you are viewing this from outside the US, do be careful that the letters and the numbers of this particular size hook may vary from country to country. The important thing is that you get a hook that is 10 millimeters. Okay, and I'm also recommending that you have a pair of sharp scissors and a yarn needle for hiding any loose ends. I'm also recommending that you have 4 buttons, and the ones shown here are size 1 1/8 inch in diameter. Of course, you can use any size button that you believe would fit through these holes. And if you want to use a particularly large button, which I will demonstrate for you at the end of this video, I will show you how to make buttonholes of any size. So really any size buttons that you think will complement your scarf will work fine. Don't forget to have matching thread and a sewing needle with which to sew them on. To begin, I'm going to start with a slip knot made just like this. Because you can slip it out, I'll undo it and show that to you one more time. If you need additional videos for these beginning stitches, check the video link below. I will have additional stitch videos for you there. Okay, for the slip knot, and then we bring this through the hole just like this, and then pulling on the tail that secures the knot to the size you need it to be to go around your hook. And then now we are going to crochet 16 chains, and I'm going to crochet 3 at a time and then reposition my fingers because these are very large stitches. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and we need one more, 16. So now that we have our starting chain of 16 single crochets, we're going to start in the second chain from the hook. This is the first chain. We're going to start in the second chain, and we're just going to stick our hook in that loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. That is a single crochet, and we are going to work single crochets all the way across this row. Stick the hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and again, hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. And these are the single crochets that are being formed. Now, if you are an absolute beginner, do know that this yarn is on the fuzzy side. It feels amazing when you're wearing a garment made with this, but it can be a little bit trickier to work with. So you may have to just give it some time. And I'll just continue doing this all the way across the row. So I'm going to continue working these, and then I'll show you what I have at the end of the row. So I've worked this all the way across, and we see our slip knot here where we just started with, and this is the very first chain that we crocheted for our chain, and that's the last place where we're going to work that single crochet. You should have a total of 15 single crochets all the way across. Now for turning, we are simply going to turn, and now we're going to wrap the hook for a chain 1, and we're going to work a single crochet in each stitch across. But for row 2, we have 2 loops we're going to go through. If you look at the top of the stitch, you'll see these little V's. They look like V's stacked together, and that is the top of the stitch, and that is where we're going to place our hook, right under those 2 stitches. And just like we did before, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Put it under those 2 loops that form that V, yarn over, and pull through 2. So go ahead and work those single crochets all the way across the row. You should have 15 single crochets once this row is complete. I'm going to show you how to work that last stitch. Here's the last single crochet in those 2 loops. We just work in that, and when you look at the rows, they should be pretty even on the ends. Okay, now we're ready to do something a little bit different. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to turn, and now we have the back side facing us. We're going to crochet in that first stitch, and again by going under those 2 loops. Now we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next stitch, and in the next stitch we're going to work a single crochet. We're going to do that again. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then single crochet in the next stitch. And this is what we're going to do all the way across, but I will do this row with you. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, single crochet in that next. Chain 1, skip 1, then single crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet. You can see that with the size of the hook and the thickness of the yarn, it can even be a little challenging for me. Chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet in that next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, and this is the last stitch of the row. Single crochet in that last stitch, and this is what you should have. And so what we're doing now is we're forming holes everywhere those chain 1 spaces are, and these can potentially become buttonholes for changing up how many different ways you can wear this scarf. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 single crochets and 7 chain 1 spaces. Okay, now we're going to turn again. Okay, so that was row 3. We're going to chain 1. We are going to single crochet in the first stitch. Now this is where this is different from row number 3. We're also going to single crochet in that chain 1 space. Now we're going to chain 1, skip the single crochet, and single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, single crochet in the chain 1 space. And that's what we're going to do across, but you did notice that the first stitch and the last stitch are going to be different. Single crochet, skip this single crochet in the next space. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, single crochet in that chain 1 space. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, single crochet in that chain 1 space. Chain 1, skip the stitch, and then single crochet in the chain 1 space. Now we're also going to single crochet in that last stitch. So every other row you will work what I just worked, where you work a single crochet in the first stitch. You're always going to crochet a single crochet in the first stitch of every row, and then a single crochet in the chain 1 space, and then chain 1, and then we're single crocheting only in the chain 1 spaces all the way across till we get to the end, and then we work a single crochet in that ending space. So in this particular row you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 single crochets, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chain 1 spaces. Let's go ahead and turn to begin row number 5. We're going to chain 1, single crochet in that first stitch. We're always going to do that for each row, and then we chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then single crochet in the next stitch. This is an exact repeat of row number 3. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, single crochet in that next space, chain 1, skip the stitch. So basically you're not crocheting in the single crochets unless it's the first and the last stitch of the row. And I'm just working this all the way across. I am picking up a little speed. And then skip the next stitch, and then we're going to single crochet in that last stitch. Okay, so that was a repeat of row number 3. So, okay, this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So row 5 is the same as row 3, and row 4 is going to be the same as row 6. Let's work row 6, which again is a repeat of row 4. We turn, we chain 1, single crochet in that first stitch, and then since you have a chain 1 space coming next, you go ahead and single crochet in that space, chain 1, skip the single crochet, and then we're just going to single crochet and then chain 1, making sure that you work the single crochets only in the chain 1 spaces as you go across. And I'm going to work this all the way across, and then I'm going to give you a very large assignment, but a fun assignment. Okay? Okay, so now we've worked in all the chain 1 spaces with the chain 1 space in between our single crochets, and then single crochet in that last stitch. Let's go ahead and pause. And this is what you should have after the first 6 rows. Now what we're going to do from this point until you reach the length that you want your scarf to be, this could be a smaller scarf, this could be like the double wrap cowl infinity style scarf that I showed you, which you can also change up into many different many different styles. Okay, so go ahead and repeat rows 3 and 4 over and over and over until your scarf reaches the length that you prefer. And then in a minute I will show you just how many rows it took and the length that I achieved with what I have so far. I have just completed a total of 108 rows, and I don't want to scare you with such a large number because these rows went very quickly. And even though I'm an experienced crocheter, I do believe this is a project that you could easily complete in under 3 hours. I have been working on this for less than an hour and a half, It has been rather enjoyable, to be honest with you, and it has grown quite quickly. This is approximately 60 inches from the top to the bottom. Now, as far as the width of this scarf, this is about 7 inches, maybe 7¼ inches across. Now, before I show you the last 2 rows for this project, I wanted to spend just a couple minutes doing some troubleshooting, because chances are, if you're an absolute beginner, you may have had trouble with this scarf either growing or perhaps shrinking. In other words, gaining additional stitches that you don't want. The way you can find that, if you see like a little bulge on one side or the other, you know that you've added more stitches. And let me show you one place where I tended to do this myself. This would be a repeat of row number 4, and this is where you have a single crochet, and then you immediately crochet a single crochet in the chain 1 space, chain 1, etc., all the way across. And then what I found myself doing is, instead of working the single crochet in the chain 1 space and then a single crochet in that final single crochet, this is what I was doing. And again, this is what not to do, and this is how to fix it. So I was chaining an extra chain that I did not need, and then chaining, or rather single crocheting in that spot, and it didn't look bad. But then when I would chain 1 and then continue on, I would single crochet in the first stitch and then single crochet in that chain 1 space and then chain 1 and then single crochet, etc. Now look what happens. Do you see this? Do you see how this is sticking out excessively? And definitely more than the other row ends. So that would happen, and I know, oh, I have to take that out. That is not correct. And then that's when I found that I had added this chain 1 space. So the cure to that is to go back and pull out that chain 1 space and just hope that you don't catch this, that you catch this right away and not, 10 or 15 rows into it. And let me just say that if it is 15 or 10 rows down, and you don't want to tear that all out, if this is your first project, you feel free to leave it and just tell people it was intentional. It's an avant-garde or creation. So to correct that, you don't put the chain 1 space. You go directly to a single crochet, so that the beginning of the row with those 2 single crochets without a chain, they should match, okay, as a repeat of row 4. Well, anyway, let's go on to the last 2 rows. This would be for row 109 and 110. We're going to chain 1, and these are both going to be pretty much the same. We are going to work a single crochet in each single crochet and in each chain 1 space all the way across. And if we didn't add unwanted additional stitches, we should have a total of 15 when we get to the end of this row. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to work this one with you. I'm just working a single crochet in each stitch, and effectually, yeah, each stitch, which includes the single crochets and the chain 1 spaces. And these last 2 rows, or the first 2 rows, however you want to work it, are going to be the home of the buttons that we select to pass through these holes. And what's kind of fun about this is the entire project is totally reversible. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I love it when the math works. Chain 1. Now for the final row, let's go ahead and turn again. It's getting a little twisted up on me. But so we're just going to work single crochet in each stitch across. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll show you the last stitch. Now as we work the last stitch, just work a single crochet, and I do have 15 stitches all the way across. And to fasten off, we're going to make a chain. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this tight in just a second, but before I do, I'm going to use my scissors and cut a generous strand so that it's long enough to make it easier to hide. I'm going to pull it through and then go ahead and give it a nice tug. Now with this particular yarn, do not pull it super hard, because if you do, let me show you what will happen. If you pull it too hard, it'll snap on you just like that. So you don't want to snap the yarn. That's why I recommend that you have a pair of scissors handy. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to hide this loose strand. Now, since we only are using one ball of yarn and I still have a little bit left, so if I want to make something else, you know, with the remainder, I can. So now that we have the yarn threaded, we are going to hide our strand. Now, I usually say hide on the back side, but since this is reversible and this yarn is so fluffy, this is going to be very easy to hide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down, kind of like this, and give it, pull on it, you know, kind of gently. And I'm just going to run it underneath this last row, and it should hide this quite well. Okay, this may seem a little tedious to you, but it's really important that we hide our loose strands and not just let them remain. And I like to hide quite a bit of the strand, which is why I like to leave at least, you know, 4 to 6 inches of a tail, and that just makes sure that I can hide this very adequately into the fabric of this scarf. So I have run this under several of the stitches, so that's going to be plenty. Now watch what I do. I'm going to give it a little pull back, okay? That way, it just works better that way. And then I'm going to cut the strand, but notice I am not going to cut the stitches, but I am cutting it close by, and ta-da! It is completely hidden, and you're never going to see that strand again. And because I hid a lot of it under the stitches, it doesn't have the risk of being pulled out. Like if I just left a tiny little bit here, there's a good chance that Ed will eventually, over time, pull out and just have this little ragged tail, and you don't want that. So now I have one more of these to hide, and I'll go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to go look at some buttons to find that will look beautiful on the end of this scarf, so that I can, I'll just show you. Okay, using a needle and thread, I've gone ahead and sewn on 4 buttons that I thought would look nice on the scarf. Now, one thing nice about this particular size button, I used 1 1/8 inch buttons, is that they will come through practically any of the holes anywhere on this scarf. So making wearing this scarf really fun, and you can just, you know, you're only limited by your own creativity as to how you would like to wear it. But let me show you some other options as far as buttons go. I will say with the 1 1/8 inch, it's good to use about 4. Now, if you want to use larger buttons, slightly larger than this, you can. You might only need 3. It's really up to you and what you think looks visually best. Now I want to show you another option. I have selected some other yarn from the same style of yarn, which is more multicolored. I don't recommend you use this type of yarn if you're an absolute beginner, but if you're comfortable with the stitches, by all means go ahead. It's just sometimes the darker colors can be a little tricky if you're first learning where to put the stitches. But that aside, let me show you what I'm going to do with this scarf. I am going to use one huge button right here on the scarf, but obviously this button is going to be too big to slip through these holes. So I'm going to show you how to make a buttonhole, and you can make a buttonhole of any size using the method I'm just about to show you. Okay, looking at the diameter, it looks as if this button will be approximately 5 stitches wide. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 1 from that, which will make it 4 stitches wide, which will make it a little more snug, which is what we want, because if once we create the buttonhole, there is going to be some give along the side, and if we make it exactly 5 stitches wide, I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be too big and it'll be able to slip out. So let's try 4 stitches wide, and since we have, let's see, we have 15 stitches across, and so that means we're going to have 5 stitches on one side, and then it looks like 6 stitches on the other, if I'm doing my math correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, I've gone ahead and I have already worked the row of straight single crochet. So there are no chain one spaces. This is all single crochet in the previous row. I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to single crochet in the first 5 stitches. Again, the math that I did in my head quickly is we have 15 stitches across, and we want to subtract 4 stitches for the opening of the buttonhole. That leaves us 11. So so that's not an even number, so we'll have just, you know, it'll be fine. So we'll do 5 stitches on one side and 6 stitches on the other of the buttonhole. That is if you want the buttonhole to be centered, and I do. I'm going to chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is for the buttonhole. And then I'm going to skip 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's as simple as that. And then single crochet in the remaining 6 stitches. Now before I finish all of these 6 stitches on this side, let me just say that if the button were smaller, and let's say it was only, let's say 4 stitches wide, you might want to make it 3 stitches opened here, because even though we have 4 stitches wide, you can see there's going to be quite a bit of give. And let's see if this will slip through. Yeah, that'll slip. See how easily that slips through? But I think that'll be fine to hold it in place. Now, if we had skipped 5 stitches, which is the width of this button, I promise you it would just slip in and out and would not be an adequate buttonhole. So I hope that helps you. Now, when this works with all types of yarn, so when you are working with smaller buttons and much smaller hooks and yarn, you know, you just do the same thing basically, and you could get a very good buttonhole. Okay, so that's the one row where we have formed the buttonhole. So now we're going to make it even better. Now we're going to work another row of single crochets, and I'll show you how we do that. We work 1 stitch in each of the single crochets. And that's number 5 and 6. And in the chain, we're going to work 1 single crochet for each chain that we made. So we had 4 chains, so we're going to work 4 single crochets right in that chain. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just double check to make sure I did that right. Okay, so that was the last stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. And then 1 single crochet in each of the last 5 stitches. Okay, so we could end it there, but I think what I'm going to do, since this button is so large and I want, you know, stitching to be behind the entire button, I'm going to do 1 more row of single crochets just to kind of help firm that buttonhole up, since it is a very large buttonhole. And if you are a new beginner, you can tell that it is a little more tricky to see with the darker yarns. And even though the variegation of this yarn is so much fun to work with, you may want to select some lighter colored choices of this yarn. Or you could just go ahead and be brave and choose some of the darker colors as well, just to let you know that darker yarns tend to be just slightly harder to work with, just mostly because of the visuals and seeing where the stitches go. If you're an absolute beginner, I just want you to have the absolute best start in the whole wide world to this craft. Okay, so this is the last stitch. I'm going to go ahead and do the chain, and then I'm going to cut a generous strand just like I did before. And I'm going to pull this through before I tighten it. And you know, don't over tighten, because you know the yarn can easily break and you don't want that to happen. Okay, so what I'm going to do to the other side is I'm going to sew this button on, and then it should slip through no problem, and that's going to look beautiful on this scarf, I believe. Well, let me go ahead and sew this on, and then I will show you what I have. Well, I hope you enjoyed making these cushy scarves with me today. If you did, please comment below. I would love to hear from you. God bless. Bye-bye.